guys, welcome back to another episode of The Welcome Table. This is Sydney
and Tatum.
and we are going to be talking to Adaeze Oduma. She is a UCI undergrad who is committed to enriching the college experience for the LGBTQ community as an ambassador for LGBTQ Affairs at the CBCRR. She is a double major in psychology and education sciences, and she's really passionate about having open conversations surrounding mental health. One of her goals is to change the public schools' approach to mental health in all of their students. We are so excited to be speaking with you, Adaeze. How are you?
I'm doing good. I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, happy to have you here. And before we jump into the questions, we do a little show and tell. And this week we'll go first. So mine is a little girly, but I brought this book. I used to work at a discount bookstore for a couple months.
Oh my gosh, I totally see that for you.
Yeah, it was so much fun. I was having the time of my life. I was making pennies, but it was fun. I got to bump my own music. It was great. So, and another perk was in lieu of payment of money and insurance, I got to pick out a book at the end of every shift, any book I wanted. And this one was on the shelf, just looking at me for so long. And I'm into cottagecore stuff. I had this pipe dream of wanting to live in the forest and to make my own skin products and stuff. And so this book really got me. So it's called Beauty from a Country Garden. So basically, look at all these illustrations. Are you kidding me?
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so it's
that's so nice.
I know. So it's basically just a book with a bunch of natural remedies and stuff.
That's super cool.
Yeah, you can make your own face lotion, lip balm, makeup, all this kind of stuff. I would never make it because my eczema could never, but I do hold this quite dear, and I keep this sticker on here to keep me humble, so that's my item. And what did you bring today?
I love that. I too bought a book. Haha.
Yeah.
This is it's a poetry collection book. It's by Juma Umebinyo, and it's entitled Questions for Ada. Yeah, so I followed when I was on Tumblr. Those are the days. I saw a lot of her poetry circulating, and I decided to buy her book. I think I bought this book when I was 15 or 16 years old.
Wow.
After I got my debit card for the first time.
Oh,
and yeah, as you can see, it's dusty. It's dusty. There's lots of things here, just poems that I like to revisit to remind myself and ground myself sometimes. And I think this is also one of the motivating factors for me to write my own
poetry
stuff. So yeah, this is my book.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, nice. Awesome. A book well loved for sure. Yeah.
So awesome. Yeah. Okay. So we're going to jump right into asking you some pretty important questions about yourself. We chatted with you before for Black Fam 2.5. So we know a little bit about the other things you like to do, like art, music, reading, poetry, and a whole bunch of other cool things. What made you decide to do or to choose psychology and educational sciences as your double major?
Yeah. Well, I actually applied to UCI as a psych major PSB, but they changed the name now. Just because I was I want to be a developmental psychologist and I want to get my PhD. All of that stuff, because I just mental health is this is where I want to go and work towards. And so that's always been a passion of mine since high school. And then with education was actually by accident. So my first year, I was in a program called Jumpstart, and so we went into preschools in Santa Ana, and kind of helped with having the kids learn how to read and their writing skills, their speaking, all of those kinds of things, social emotional learning. It was a really great experience. I didn't realize that that count. I mean, I knew it also counted as class credit, but also too, because of my major, a lot of the major requirements cross list with education. And so basically I was kind of already an education minor. So I was I'll just tack it on. And then I went to go take one class to fulfill the rest of my minor. And it was literally, I think it was the problems, the class I think was literally the problems in the K-12 education system. And I was oh my gosh, I'm so frustrated. I'm mad. I want to make a difference, make a change or whatever. But that class motivated me to basically finish the rest of my degree in education, basically, since everything was cross-listed. And education is something that like, I'm really passionate about as well. And so that's how the two got merged together. So yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I can totally see how they're so intrinsically linked because, so much of your psychological development happens within those education years, at least when we're forced to be in school. So that's so important to focus on mental health during those years. So I think that's awesome. And that's related to our next question. Was there a person who inspired you to be passionate about mental health? Or was it just always something that you were interested in?
Yeah, so I distinctly remember this conversation with one of my classmates. I think we were like in the 9th or 10th grade. His name is George. And we were basically talking about like school sex, like school sex. And like, I guess with all of the pressures of, taking the right classes and being involved in extracurriculars, all of this, to be a well-rounded student and to go on college applications, all of those things, like we were all like overwhelmed and just talking about like, oh my gosh, like this needs to change and like something to that degree. And then he was like, maybe you should like, I don't know, like do something about it. And I was like, I mean, I guess. Yeah, but I mean, now here I am, just like I think back to that conversation and a lot of like the students, like in my time in high school, and I guess even now too, how it's like we're trying to balance being a student in life, but it's like really taking a toll, and so it's difficult to find that balance, to step back and like find and like be well mentally as well as like physically, because everything all connects together. And so I think that's just been like my motivating factor, is just to figure out a way to make this easier, especially like as each year progresses. When I think about high school students now and then wanting to go to college, or having to be better and better and better, there'd be a lot of like, because I'm also a campus representative, and a thing that we like to joke about is like, wow, like if we were like in high school like now and we wanted to apply to UCI, like we wouldn't get in, just because the stakes get higher and higher each year in terms for like everybody in terms of applying to college. And so I just want to figure out a way to, I don't know, make being a kid easier. Yeah.
There's already so much stuff that kids have to deal with inherently just existing within the world, and then the added stress of like like wanting to be successful and what that means within this world is so difficult to contend with as a child, and you lose out on a lot of like the perks of childhood when you're just trying to just make yourself and your parents or whoever else is supporting you proud. Right. But it shouldn't be that way. It should be a balance.
More about being a child,
Concept, be a child when you're a child.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, well, I just thank you for sharing all of that. And we wanted to ask more about the mental health aspect of it. So we're going to take a deeper dive into it. So like I said, we're going to talk about more like of what we talked about on our Black Fam 2.5 episode. So it was surrounding mental health, and you read us a lovely poem. I still remember it. And we had, we just had a really awesome, candid conversation about the types of difficulties surrounding POC and mental health. So we wanted to share with our welcome table audience what mental health difficulties are most prevalent or most specific to people of color, in your opinion or experience.
Yeah, I think first is just the silence and the denial that comes with it, around like what we're feeling and how we should operate in the world. And I think that given a lot of the traumatic histories that lots of people of color have experienced over time, like we tout a lot about the strength and the courage and the fact that like we're still here because of the people that came before us and all of their efforts, and we talk about that a lot, but like we don't think about, or we don't talk about out loud what that cost, like mentally and like physically. But I guess lacking mentally a bit more. And how, right, because it's like you have this whole these groups of people who did all these things to make sure that you're here, and like I feel like there's this internalized need to be grateful, or like not wanting to complain, or like needing to complain on just like a general level, not even going to like the specifics of different people with different conditions that they have, but yeah, just like that silence. And luckily, as the years and years have progressed, people have been like, no, like, like I this is not for me, or like this is not okay, or like I'm tired, or like yes, I'm grateful to be where I am, but like I still like I want to break, or like I need to center myself, or trying to find a way, or there being that struggle to take care of oneself without feeling like guilty, or like that you're letting other people down and that you're not working hard enough. Because then it kind of chips away or breaks away at this like facade or idea that like we're like strong all the time.
Yeah.
So I think that's like the larger like overarching issue, and then like going down a bit deeper into like difficulties is just not, yeah, because those conversations are not being had. People think that they're like alone or by themselves in the way that they think or the way that they feel. And they know that they like might need help, but they don't know who to ask or are too afraid to do so. So yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, I definitely feel like there's some sort of disconnect will be the right word, in terms of like the resources that are available, and just having the open conversations like how we had for that episode. There's definitely needs to be more of those, I would say.
Yeah.
And then catered services for people of color, I think, is so important,
Right.
because you know the issues facing the Black community, specifically in other POC communities, are so I guess individual, you know, than to other communities. Like there are so many layers,
very distinct,
it's needed, you know.
Yeah.
So I think, you know, just handing somebody a therapist isn't enough. Like there needs to be certain training and certain sensitivity and empathy for people to go into therapy in order to feel comfortable, you know, to get the help that they need.
Yeah. And also like acknowledging like there's the structures that like we live in and how that affects people's like operating in the world. Like if you like right now with the pandemic, right? Like I'm writing my research paper about this right now, about students' motivation right now to do well in school. But it's like if you're not working, or if your people around you are sick, or you know, you just lost people, and just the stressful event of being in a pandemic in and of itself, like with the way that the world that we live in, it's even hard to just focus on school, on work, on top of, you know, any other kinds of feelings that you might have, in terms of like what's going on with your mental health. So that's another thing that I think isn't talked about too in the conversations, I guess general conversations about like health and well-being, and how do we ensure that people are living their best lives, I guess, so to speak. So not only looking like internally, but also looking at the external like environment that people are living in. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, no, that's so important. And we also wanted to know, does your passion for mental health intersect with your current role as the ambassador for LGBTQ affairs? Like how, if at all, does it intersect?
Yeah, I mean, so I'm like, so yeah, so basically the one of the things, there's different alternatives, I think, in making sure that people feel well in any kind of way. For some people it's like therapy, but other people it's like just being in collective spaces with individuals and having those connections like is kind of like a way to cope. Right, knowing that you have social support of some kind is important to how and whether or not you feel you can function in the world. Because if you don't have support, then it's like you may not feel that you can do what it is that you want to do. And I think with the work that I try to do is just to kind of create that space or have that space be there, even if people don't come sometimes. Like it's there and they know that it's there and there's a community for them there. And also just, you know, like being able to just talk about like what's going on in your life, or knowing that other people may have the same interests as you, but also just like having a space to go, like when the rest of the world is, you know, not so safe or not so kind, like that being like, I guess, one of many or one or a few places you can go is important to me. So that's why I try to, yeah, that's why I try to do my best. And I like really like, I have a, I really have like a soft spot in my heart for like the LGBT community, especially the Black LGBT community at UCI, because like we're even like smaller than the percentage of Black students on this campus as a whole, and so it's very important for me to see for students to at least know that there's a space there for them.
Right.
Yeah.
That's incredibly important.
Right, exactly. And I think that just like in terms of moving forward with the types of struggles that these unique communities deal with, I think there just needs to be like more awareness. That's the most simple way I can possibly put it. There needs to be more awareness, clear like communication on what marginalized communities need in order to heal, move forward, and like make tangible change. So it goes on
Exactly.
of what you were saying before. But
Yeah.
then we also want to ask you, we saw that you were on a recent episode of the Women's Hub podcast, huge fan of that, and which was called Things to Consider, in which you spoke about the importance of protecting Black women with your colleague Niobe. We also talked to her for another episode of The Welcome Table. She's great. She's awesome. Love her. So yeah, we just want to talk about what your experience was like and what were some major takeaways from that specific interview.
Yeah, Niobe is truly amazing. 12 out of 10. Like, yeah. No, it was definitely an interesting conversation, I think, because I think it was the first time in a long time. I mean, I'd been having these conversations with like some of my friends, but I think it was like the first time in a long time that I had it so extensively. And I think because we were looking at it from the lens of like on our campus too, just a little bit in terms of like who's doing like the labor and the work to make sure that like we as a community are like being supported or like thriving, and how like obviously it's on the other end of that, like people who are impacted by gendered violence, like they're the ones doing all of this work, but like they kind of get like the short end of the stick. And I think having that conversation and like talking with other people about that was like, okay, cool, like I'm not crazy, or like I'm not like saying the same thing in circles and circles, like a lot of us sometimes feel that we are. And I think for me, having that conversation really emphasized or further emphasized the want and the need to build more community with Black women and other people who are impacted by gendered violence, and just number one, like creating those spaces and making sure like those supports are in place, so that it contributes to their like material change, right? Because it's like like affirmations and all of these things are great, and videos and messages, but like at the end of the day, tangible like support is what's needed, and it's what's going to make and it's what's going to like move people forward and like make a difference. And yeah, I think about that a lot too. So yeah.
Yeah, and I think it's so important to have those conversations, and they're difficult to have now. Like obviously we're coming out of the pandemic, but during the pandemic you can't have that same sense of community as we did on campus. But you and then the CBCRR and the podcast run by the Women's Hub, creating digital spaces is so important. And I think that's proven in the conversation that you had with the Women's Hub's podcast and then your own spaces that you create. And we wanted to ask, why is it important to utilize rapidly changing digital spaces that we've been made to get used to during this whole year? Like, why is it important to utilize those spaces?
We were having this conversation with my students the other day. We were talking about how I guess like this generation, especially Gen Z, so people born 1995 up to 2012, and how they've been using these digital spaces and technology to really bolster movements and create these spaces, and create communities in a way that hasn't been done before. And I think especially in a time like this, like because most people have phones or have connections to technology in some way, like at least they're being and how it's like basically like everything is like in your phone or everything's with technology. So like why shouldn't there be a space where you can like go to like learn or be affirmed or just to connect with people who are just like you, so that you have that like external validation, and also kind of like internal support or motivation to keep doing what it is that you're doing, and like knowing that other people, like, how do I say this? Like other people, like the work that you do matters to other people, and like it's okay to kind of like show that to the world, and especially now, right? Like, I'm still trying my best to like not go outside or things like that, but it's just another way and avenue to connect and I feel like even after the pandemic has been like stabilized, I think the strength of these networks are going to continue to grow. The strength of these spaces is going to continue to grow. Um, yeah, there's always multiple ways. There's more than one way to do something, and yeah, technology is one of those ways to do that.
Yeah.
Changing connections.
Exactly. Yeah. And it's more accessible too. I think that's something that we have noticed as well. And like other people who are working in this professional space, like people, you know, who have disabilities, or like people who are maybe aren't able to go to classes due to like mental health, you know, mental health reasons. There are so many factors that keep people from going to these spaces. So I think having them online as an option is making it more accessible, and that's important too, and it pertains to intersectionality like we've been talking about.
Yeah, definitely. I'm thinking like as soon as she said that, I was like, oh my gosh, yes, because I remember last year I had a very difficult time like going to office hours, just because like either I was busy, but also because I wasn't able to move around on campus. And so I utilized the UCI's DSC cart system to get around campus, but like those were at scheduled times. So I literally had to like schedule my day around like when certain carts were available. So like I could only be like in a certain place for like an hour, or like if I wanted to go somewhere, I had to like plan it out like days in advance, where some people make the decision like, oh, okay, like I'll go like 2 days from now. And having that option of like virtual office hours, but also to and like organizing spaces too to learn what other people are doing, and also using the internet as an accessible way to put out information in a way to get people involved, has really been helpful. So yeah, I appreciate that.
Yeah, of course. We also want to talk more about your future. Where do you see yourself like in 5 years?
Oh my gosh.
Hard question, I know.
I'm just like, because I literally just like changed the trajectory of like what I'm gonna be doing after like undergrad in terms of like degrees and stuff like that.
Oh yeah.
So I'm hoping.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm like, I'm hoping that within the next 5 years, I'll either be an MPH candidate, or already have the degree and be working in the community. So I think the last time I talked to you all, I was like, I wanted to like, go into teaching immediately after graduation. But I think for me right now, with kind of like going back into like mental health, and it's still kind of related in that aspect of, with like schools and students in education and promoting that, I feel like getting more experience in the community would be helpful for me.
Yeah.
And also to like just holistic well-being overall is really, I feel like that's really all like I just want to make sure that everybody's holistic well-being is like taken care of to like a T. And I guess like so yeah, just like working in my community in that regard, in terms of like health education classes or like mental health education classes, and finding different avenues. Hopefully, in an apartment. So not this background. I'm happy to be at home. I'm saving money, but my own space is great. But yeah, no, just having that degree and kind of continuing to work in my community, and give back to it to kind of continue towards this goal of like wellness promotion, and hopefully getting closer and closer to changing how mental health is addressed and talked about, and the different ways that people have access to things.
Yeah.
So hopefully see myself making some moves, doing some stuff there. Yeah.
You definitely have all the tools and the passion for it. So, without a doubt, you'll make it.
Right. Exactly.
You will
thank you.
We have a very important, serious, and final question.
Okay.
So gear yourself up for this.
Okay.
Okay. So you're stranded on a desert island. And you only have a volleyball named Wilson.
Oh.
And an MP3 player.
Cast away.
As your only companions. Which 3 songs are you Wilson playing on repeat at the bonfire?
Oh my gosh. Okay. Okay, Pyramids by Frank Ocean.
Nice.
It's a 9-minute song. wonderful instrumentals. The story, it's a story. I love a good story.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love a good story. Crystal Clear by Hayley Williams, her new album, Petals for Armor. Chef's Kiss, so healing, motivating. But that song it's really great. Instills a lot of like hope in me. And I think, let's see, number 3. Cleo Soul, Rose in the Dark.
Nice.
I love that song. I learned about that song because I got a reading, and then like I got a reading and somebody was like, yeah, this is like the vibe where I feel like you're going. And like I listened to it, I was like, oh my gosh, this is so good. But so all of those songs kind of just like good beats, good music, but also kind of like motivating and keeping me like alive, right? Because I'm stranded. I need to be able to have that drive within. So
that mental.
yes, exactly.
Those are great choices.
Yeah, those are great choices.
I like that.
Well, thank you for sharing that with us, and thank you for just agreeing to talk with us. And we love talking with you. You're so sweet. You're such a nice, kind, open. I can literally feel your energy through the Zoom. So yeah, I definitely like. I really wish we could like meet up in person, like on campus to talk and catch up. But one day, for sure, we'll meet.
Yeah.
Fingers crossed. Yeah.
Yeah, well, thank you so much in the meantime for coming on the show and just being so wonderful and sharing information with us. We couldn't be more grateful. And, obviously we keep in touch, but best of luck to you in all of your endeavors. We know you're going to kill it. So
thank you so much. And thank you for having me.
Thank you guys so much for watching this episode of The Welcome Table. This has been Tatum
and Sydney.
And we'll see you guys next time.
Bye.